Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Monday, the first day of November, at 2:00 p.m. in Council Chambers. First item to deal with would be the adoption of some minutes. This would be the regular open minutes of October the 18th, Committee of the Whole minutes of October the 18th, and Committee of the Whole minutes of October the 20th, 2010. Looking for that motion, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Cronmiller. Any discussion on those minutes? Errors, omissions, amendments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is business arising from the prior minutes. And what we have here is a notice of motion. This is a relatively new to us legislative procedure. This would be steered by Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On our agenda, we do have the motion, and I'll just give a little background, and that is that the reports of staff and attached documentation for our meetings are generally given to us a few days before. The Wednesday noon is the deadline, and usually we receive them then on the following day, Thursday afternoon. And often we found that that packages include draft bylaws and contracts and agreements and lengthy legal documents and other things that require a great deal of study and scrutiny. And because our bylaws as well as legal contracts are legal documents, and they're binding on our council and on our town for their duration and sometimes beyond. That it was sometimes felt that we need more time to review these in fulfillment of our obligation and responsibility for due diligence, and at the same time acknowledging that our staff often are working very tight deadlines to bring these forward for our meetings and for our discussion. We don't always, I say, have adequate time to do it, and it would be advantageous for council members to have earlier access to certain documents, particularly the bylaws, the contracts, and legal documents, in advance of the usual receipt date. And so it was that brought this motion, notice of motion forward that I placed at our last meeting. And so I would like to therefore move that we adopt this resolution and resolve that all bylaws, contracts, legal, or lengthy documents for review and decision by council be distributed at the earliest practical time rather than being held for inclusion in the meeting package prior to the meeting for which they are scheduled to be discussed.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Chadsey, any further discussion on this? Councillor Chadsey.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Ryan for this. We do all read the material that's attached to the agenda, but I think we all agree that Councillor Ryan, we do rely a lot on him for a lot of the details of some of the contracts. So the more time we can give him, the better off it is. So I support it for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor Chadsey. Any other remarks? Hearing none, all in favor. Opposed? That is carried. Item D, introduction of late items. I don't believe there are any late items today. No delegations that I'm aware of. Water matters to not be dealt with. Bringing us to correspondence. I have a letter here from UBCM, the gas tax. A little bit of background on this one. Town applied for gas tax funding through the gas tax funding program. Town of Osoyoos was approved for $195,129 for the replacement of a new community use bus and also to replace the majority of the windows in the Sonora Community Center. As part of the criteria for the funding agreement, Council is required to pass a resolution to enter into the agreement as it is presented. Once the resolution is passed, 2 certified copies approving entrance into the agreement will be forwarded to Victoria. The options are: number 1, for council to agree to sign and enter into the GasTAC Public Transit Management Services Agreement as presented, or option 2, for council not to sign into the said GasTAC Public Management Services Agreement. What are council's wishes, please? Councillor Rhodes?
I'll move option 1.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Ryan, any discussion on this besides what a great idea it is?
Yes. No, indeed, wonderful opportunity to continue to reduce our carbon emissions and to our energy usage.
Yes. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We always receive funds like that with a great smile on our face, so it's nice to have that and replace some of those windows in that Sonora Center. In fact, the majority of them. Next item would be bylaws, and there's nothing under the bylaw category today. Heading into business I, item number 1, council meeting reports. There's 3 or 4 reports there, including one from myself from the UBCM, Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Ryan, and I can't make motions, so this is paying the councillors for their out-of-town attendance of meetings at the $100 a day. So I can't make motions, so I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Cronmiller, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Next item of business would be business 2. Under the Whistler Center for Sustainability contract, Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On September 20th, 2010, Council approved a motion which included the following. The town of Osoyoos will develop a sustainability community plan using the Quick Start ICSP process with the assistance of the Whistler Center for Sustainability. That will include meaningful community engagement, long-range vision for community sustainability and strategies, indicators and actions for achieving this sustainability vision. Over the past several weeks, the administration has worked with staff from the Whistler Center for Sustainability to draft a contract agreement between the town of Osoyoos and the Whistler Center for Sustainability. I would like to move that we have the mayor and the CAO sign the agreement with the Whistler Center for Sustainability, and that we proceed with the plan.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Chadsey. Further discussion on this, please. Mr. Romanko, do you have a couple of comments about this, about further telling our audience and what it means to us, what this...
Well, what this, the Community Sustainability Plan is a long-range strategic document that looks at many aspects of our community in an integrated manner that allows us to plan so that we are a sustainable community. And the Whistler Center certainly has been a leading force with the community of Whistler that is certainly nationally known for its methods of doing business to ensure that the sustainability of the community is closely monitored. So we will very shortly, probably we had in the discussions that we had with the sustainability people, we'll probably be initiating this process in the public aspect in January. Meanwhile, they'll be reviewing a lot of our documentation in terms of all the plans we have. But when this project is completed, the community and the municipality will have shared goals in terms of looking at making this community more sustainable. So it's quite an exciting project, and we look forward to working with our other resort municipalities that are also involved in this project, and working with the Whistler Center.
Great, thank you. And I think I would like to also mention that this has been partially funded by the FCM, so we do have some federal funding there, and it's also going to be a requirement in the not too distant future that all communities are going to have this plan. So getting in early in this case and getting in with some cost sharing it's nice to be in the first wave where there is some cost sharing available rather than down the road when that may dry up. It's going to be an interesting process. I'm quite looking forward to ourselves. Any further comments from Councillor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I certainly endorse what you've said, and the motion that we just passed to have the CAO and the mayor sign our document with the gas tax transfer is another step in that direction, where we're putting in these energy efficient windows, we're having a low emissions vehicle, bus that we're going to buy. So we're already moving in that direction. This is going to give us a very well articulated and integrated plan. And I might say, because I'm going to talk about this later in my councillor comments, that this is another way we're reaching out to our community, drawing some of the expertise and some of the energy and commitment that our citizens have to participate in the development of this plan.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any further comments on this? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That brings us to business number 3, Jack Pine Lane petition requesting speed bumps. Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The residents of Jack Pine Lane over in East Suyas have sent us a petition, and basically they have asked that we install some speed bumps in Jack Pine Lane, especially in the back alley, because drivers, they say, speed through this busy street at about 50 kilometers an hour or more, and children are often playing there. So we have a report from our director of Public Works, who is operational services, who's saying that this is a concern for the town, because we have 20 kilometer an hour signs and local traffic signs there to try to minimize it. But speed bumps become a maintenance problem. Emergency personnel, ambulance, fire, and police find them a problem, and they're not in favor of those. And acknowledging that we can't always enforce speed limits around the town. I was going to go over and look at this in person. I know the area, but I was going to go over. But I did phone the gentleman, Phil Kraft, who delivered this, and talked to him about it. And I felt that it was important that council hear from the residents. I mean, we've seen the petitions, and we've seen petitions before, but somehow petitions aren't the same as individuals in person appearing before us. And so we talked a little more about this, and talked about other alternatives and so on. And I just felt it was really important for council to hear this, because I've heard it from other people, even about the downtown here, about the lane behind Home Hardware, and the lanes I often walk through the lane behind the credit union, and people don't go 20 kilometers an hour. That's all there is to it. So I would like to, therefore, what's the word here? We don't want to. We're not tabling it. We're postponing it. Deferring it. Okay, deferring it to our next committee of the whole meeting, and to invite, to accept the invitation and the request to have a delegation of residents from this area attend and make a presentation. And in the meantime, perhaps we could ask our Director of Operational Services to give additional thought to this and to some of the concerns that they have, and to other alternatives that might be possible.
User, that was a motion.
That was
yes,
a deferral motion.
A deferral motion. Yes. Seconder, please. Councillor Chadsey. No discussion on a motion to defer? Yes, there is. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Up.
To the Committee of the Whole.
All in favor? Opposed? We'll deal with it at the Committee of the Whole. And further to that, so far I've just seen a yes and a no to the speed bumps. And again, with what Councillor Ryan was saying, I hope there may be some other options that are presented at that meeting. I think the people are saying that they do need some sort of assistance over there, and looking at a safety sort of where we should be looking. The next item is the janitorial contract. Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This matter was before council at our last council meeting, and it's to renew the janitor contract for the maintenance of the town hall, upstairs of the fire hall, the public works, and the planning and development offices. And at the last meeting, council approved the contract to the bidder. I think it's Orion Janitorial Services, yeah. And so what we have before us today is a request that council pass a motion authorizing the mayor and corporate officer to execute the agreement between the town and Orion Janitorial. And just to confirm that this is a 3-year contract, it goes till October 2013. And it has one 3-year renewal to it. And the contract is for $625 per month, plus HST, plus a $25 per hour, plus HST for emergency callouts. And for those of you who have read the contract, which is part of the document, on page 2 of the contract, under the terms, there is 2 little typing errors that have been corrected. And so just to be on the safe side, I will ask that this motion be to the mayor and corporate officers to execute the contract as amended.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Any further discussion? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And this is the same people that were doing the job right now. Is that correct, Ms. Van Veen? Yes, it is. And I was in the office on Sunday, and she was here doing. So I met the lady that's going to do the cleaning and lives here in Osoyoos and that. So there is an Osoyoos component to it. As always, like, always appreciate that. Oh no, 45th Street Road alignment tender, still out there. This has got to be the end of it. It sure is. This has got to be the last time, I hope. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my sentiments as well, but this is one of those feel-good things where we get to spend some money, particularly good because it's somebody else's money. So, anyway, a little bit of background. This project is to construct the realigned portion of 45th Street and Highway 3, and the tender for this project closed on October 5th of 2010. Just a little bit of an overview. We received four tenders were received, with Osoyoos Aggregates being the lowest bidder at $414,469.76 plus HST. True Consulting Group has reviewed the tender packages and has confirmed that Osoyoos Aggregates is the low bidder and meets all the tender requirements. This tender from Osoyoos Aggregates includes provisions for intersection lighting and extension of the water and sewer mains that was not included in the initial cost to the Osoyoos Indian Band. However, during the process of finalizing the design of the road realignment, it was determined that it would be far more beneficial and cost-effective to be done during this construction and was included in the tender request. This project is fully funded by contributions from the Osoyoos Indian Band, and all funds have been collected, including the costs for reconstruction, intersection lighting, water and sewer extension, and town administrative costs. So we have a couple of options here. First one being to award the 45th Street Road Realignment Project to Osoyoos Aggregates for $414,469.76 plus HST. Second option being to retender the project. And I would like to move that we accept option 1.
Goop, seconder. Councillor Ryan.
I'll second it, but I think I'd like to add another $3,000 to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
417.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, $417,469.76. My apologies.
Thank you. And that was seconded as amended. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's a nice big contract, actually. Substantial for going into the winter. Next item is the water meter installation tender. These three projects were tendered. The tenders closed on October the 19th, 2010, which include the water meter installation for the major water users and for flow meters at the Desert Park Irrigation and Golf Course lift station locations, and their budgets are reflected as the installation at $75,000, the flow meter for the Desert Park at $10,000, and the flow meter for the golf course lift station at $35,000. The tender was broken down into two parts, with 4 quotes received for Part A, which includes the installation of 16 water meters inside building locations, and 5 quotes received for Part B, which include the installation of 10 water meters in outside locations and flow meters for Desert Park Irrigation and golf course lift stations. The lowest bidders were Joe's Plumbing and Heating at $16,607.36 for Part A, and Border Plumbing and Heating at $27,672.28 for Part B. All 3 projects are within budget to proceed. There were 4 bidders who quoted on both parts of the contract, with Joe's Plumbing and Heating being the lowest bidder at $45,868.48. However, in the tender proposal, it allowed that the evaluation by the town for parts A and B would be assessed as completely separate projects. So the options coming forward out of this is to award the projects as per True Consulting Group recommendations, as per their letter dated October the 26th, which would be to award parts A and parts B. Option 2, it would be to award the project to Joe's Plumbing and Heating for $45,868.48, which was the sum total of A and B together. Or the third option was to not award and to retender. So council's wishes are, the recommendation is option 1, to go with the split, which would be Joe's Plumbing and Border Plumbing? Yes. Yeah, Border, as the recommendation from 2, I would need that motion. Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion that we award Part A of the project to Joe's Plumbing for the amount of $16,607.36, and to Border Plumbing and Heating for Part B at the quote of $27,672.28. And it's my understanding that both these are within the budget amounts.
Thank you. Seconder on that motion, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion on this? Hearing up, Councillor Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Simply to say that it's nice to see the metering going ahead, and so these are our heavy users, and so we're going to be metering them, and then we'll start getting a better picture of how much is being used of our water.
Great, thank you. Councillor Cronmiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, the CAO left the room, so I don't know. I have a question with regards to this, in that not being an engineer or any of those things. But when I looked at it, I was curious about the installations of the water meters on in town systems, irrigation systems, and wondering why town staff couldn't have installed those. Save the colors. Probably. Don't have anyone here to answer. So.
Mr. Zackel, any help there?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, this project, as most of our capital infrastructure projects have been tendered out, due to the fact that our employees do have a full slate of work available for them. So this was deemed as something that they could take on due to their current workloads. But that is something that we can address if our public works crew could take on some of these.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zackel. And I guess when we probably break it down between the meter component and the labor component, that might help too. It's probably mostly into the metering itself, into the purchasing of the meter, rather than the installation. Yeah, I think that's a fair question too, as we go into the winter season with our water group of workers, if that could have been done in there. Mr. Romanko, this question was directed to you. And we were looking at thanks, Mr. Zackel. We were looking, of course, at the question of would it be possible for our work crew to be doing this function?
Thanks to Mr. Zackel for stepping in for me.
Okay.
I was
Great. Okay, anything further? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item of business would be some budget amendments. Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have here some small budget amendments to make, and these are only to adjust our expenditures to reflect actual changes or commitments from council which have happened in the current year 2010. We're not increasing our costs, we're simply moving money from one budget to another. These things do happen throughout the year, and our financial plan bylaw 1266-2010, which we adopted in April on the 19th, will not be, as I say, increased by this. What we're doing is we are moving in three categories. We're moving miscellaneous expense from a budget of 28. We're going to increase that to 61, and in our maintenance of Desert Park grounds, we're going from $4,620 to $14,620, and our contingency is going down from $50,000 to $6,900. So what we've done is we've taken our contingency fund and we've spread it throughout these other two to account for two things. Number one, our miscellaneous expense is now going to cover the organizational review that we've been talking about, and which we have accepted to do. And also, we have made some upgrades to Desert Park to fulfill some of the commitments that were made in our contractual obligations. So we're simply taking money out of contingency and spreading it over two other line items. So I would therefore, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we approve the recommended budget changes that I have outlined as presented.
Thank you. That was well explained also. Sometimes the budget items can get away on us. Seconder, please. Councillor Rhodes. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That has been done. Last item under the business section of the meeting, under business 8, would be development permits. This is dealing with the Lions Park Marina, and I believe Mr. Shannon is going to be the lead on this. Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Good afternoon, Council. I've been asked to make a minor change to both of the permits. So I'm going to pass out a little handout here that is Section 3 of DP 04 and 1004 and DP 1005. It's just a minor change to the text, and I'll pass you out a copy here so that you can see it. So anyway, this text change, it's in section 3 under development, it was stating that the authorization to transfer this permit shall, if deemed acceptable, would need to be granted by council resolution. It's not really great grammar, and to make it a little bit more forceful, we're changing the word shall to must, and we're just stroking out a couple words there and making it read be granted by council resolution. So that'll take place in both of the permits. Okay, so we have 2 development permits in the package, and recently, at the end of September, we received an authorization for works affecting fish habitat pursuant to the Fisheries Act. And the authorization is effective from September 30th to April the 1st, 2013. So there's a lot of the language in this report is already covered off in the permits if you've had time to read the permits. But anyway, on October the 26th, the Director of Planning and Development Services approved the riparian development permit, and that permit applies to the dredging of the lagoon, the shoring of the lagoon walls, the installing of a wharf with the 32 slips, upgrading of the 2 existing boat launches, one at the south end of the lagoon and the other at the other south of the lagoon adjacent to the sailing club, and installing 2 F-shaped docks, each consisting of 52 slips located outside of the lagoon area on the Soyuz Lake. So the latter has not been approved by council yet as part of the marina project. The terms and conditions of the riparian DP will need to comply with the criteria identified in the fisheries authorization prepared by Summit Environmental Consultants Limited. But also the environmental impact assessment, the final report dated July 23rd, 2009, the project review information requirements for the works affecting fish habitat dated February the 8th, 2010, and the riparian areas regulation assessment report that's attached to the to the package dated August the 30th, 2010. You'll also find a complete copy of the Fisheries Act authorization attached to the package as Schedule A. And measures must be taken to protect the streamside protection enhancement area. That's a big fancy word for the riparian area that the qualified environmental professionals use. Also included in your package is a commercial development permit, number 1005. It's been prepared for council's consideration, and this permit applies to the commercial aspects of Phase 1 of the marina, which are the 32 slips to be constructed within the lagoon area and the 2 boat launches. Prior to construction of the Phases 2 and 3 of the marina, consisting of the 2 F-shaped dock structures, an additional commercial development permit needs to be approved by council. And as described in the terms and conditions of the DP 1005, council approval for Phases 2 and 3 also needs to include a variance to the Town of Osoyoos dock regulations to allow the 2 F-shaped docks to extend a distance greater than 30 meters from high water mark, defined as an elevation of 278.2 meters for Osoyoos Lake. Cost implications for these permits. As a condition of the Fisheries Act authorization, the Town of Osoyoos is required to provide a financial security of $50,000 in an acceptable form of payment to Fisheries and Oceans Canada on and before November 30th, 2010. So we've got a couple of options here that council approves DP 1005, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the permit to allow for construction again of Phase 1, Lions Park Marina, or 2, that council does not approve DP 1005. Staff recommend that council approve the permit, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the permit. Got any questions? I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. I'm sure there'll be some questions from council. Council, please. Councilor Chadsey.
Thank you. Mr. Shannon, just as a clarity, a little bit for me, but probably a lot for anybody who's going to watch this. The riparian development permit is including the F docks, which are something that is loosely being discussed, and there is no decision made on it. And if there is a decision, it must be in the form of a development permit approved by a council. So can you tell us what the reason is to have them included in the riparian DP?
Well, I'll try. All of these studies are based on the whole project as a whole study. The authorization for works affecting fish habitat, it's all done as a complete authorization for the whole package. The detailed riparian assessments 1 and 2 are both based on the whole riparian area. So we thought it was only right that we just issue the permit in one shot for all of the works affecting the riparian area. But make sure that we noted appropriately that it was not approved yet on a commercial basis. That nothing could take place, no construction could take place on the 2 Fs until the commercial development permit back to
Council? Council Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have before us a development permit, 1005. Is there a building permit that will be part of this as well, or is this all that is needed?
For this particular phase, as it's written up in this permit, I don't think building. If it went ahead in the future and added more works to the parking lot, like any buildings or structures, then we would probably get it. That's the way I understood. I was trying to get clarification on that from the building inspector myself, and that's the way I pretty much understood it. There's not going to be any buildings constructed yet.
So what we're talking about here, it does, I think it talks about those works and so on, but it would include the dredging, and it would include the 32 slips and the improvement of the two launches. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have a couple of other questions, if I may. I just don't recall offhand what we have in our budget for this current year, and I don't know whether you know that or whether we could get some help from one of the other members of staff.
Our portion of the marina of the first phase is budgeted for. We have the funds in place
For our portion.
for our portion. Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and maybe Mr. Remenko, maybe you're the perfect person to direct this to. We did look at a management contract in draft recently, and we felt that it needed to be looked at by our lawyers. Is it good for us to be moving ahead in this direction prior to us having a management contract where we know who's doing what and what the share of things is going to be, and we've got a few of these cost parameters nailed down?
Well, this is the issuing of the permit. The permit spells out the actual process of development. The agreement is a separate process, and when the agreement comes forth, it's looked at as the agreement only. So however, I guess what I'm trying to do is separate the development process from the management process. And we have in our plan to do this development, and the second step is how we're going to co-manage it. So there may be terms and conditions that have to be worked out yet, but it is something that's looked on as a positive that will happen, and has been supported, and so in our capital plan. And the minor issues of the management, will work themselves out. I don't know if if the Director of Planning has any other comments to add in terms of that, but they are two separate processes. Alan, you need a microphone.
Yes, if you look at the second page of the commercial DP, it states very clearly that the form and character of the marina shall be shown on Schedule A attached to this permit. So this is a form and character development permit, but a separate matter from the agreement that we're going to have with OSD. The question of costs, which you're alluding to, will be fully spelled out in Schedule B of that agreement.
So if we proceed with this and prove it today, will that precipitate the town tendering the excavation of the lagoon and the replacement of the existing launches and so on?
Absolutely not. No work will be able to proceed until the agreement has been signed by both parties.
I see, okay. Good. Because that's crucial, because we have in our budget, but it's not the total amount. We have our portion, or our expected portion, budgeted for. Okay.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Ryan, and I guess I have questions along that line, and I certainly don't want to see us committed to going ahead when we don't have any hard financial numbers, we don't have an agreement with Osulias Shoreline Development. There's nothing out there at this point. So what we're being asked to approve today is the riparian development permit.
No. I have already approved the riparian development permit under the delegated powers that I have. However, I should note very quickly that I have not issued it, and I did not want to issue it until we had this meeting today with respect to your approval of the commercial DP.
Okay, so then the permit that we have today is a development permit?
Yes, that's correct.
Allowing the work to proceed, all things being equal, which would be contract with Osulias Shoreline Development, the tenders being acceptable. We may not approve a price factor going into here. So this is not a commitment to anything further.
No, it is not. The only commitment is that you would be asked to approve the form and character of the lagoon phase of the development.
No, this is not really in sync with the item we're dealing with, but it sort of is, that it's an opportunity. When we get into the dollar figures for the actual dredging of the lagoon and the floats and assorted things to make it a complete project, will we see that as a whole rather than as piecemeals where we commit to dredging the lagoon and then down the road find further amounts that are way out of what we had envisioned or expected? So would we see this as a whole picture, complete lockup, the boat launching ramps, the floats, the slips, everything all as one package before we ever started to proceed with it financially?
Correct. All the capital costs will be included in Schedule B of the joint agreement. As far as the operational and maintenance costs, those will be attached to the management agreement, of which we haven't received a copy as yet. But everything will be broken down and specified.
Okay, thank you, because I'm looking for those sort of assurances.
Right.
Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologizing in advance. I think everybody understands I'm a stickler for protocol, and I would like to make a motion at this point so that we can have more debate about this matter. And with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that council approve development permit number 1 0-05, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the permit, to allow for construction to begin on Phase 1 of the Lions Park Marina. And I'd like to speak to that motion if there's a seconder.
Councillor Chadsey for seconder, please. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always important to understand that when a person puts a motion on the floor that you can put a motion on the floor and not necessarily agree with it. I think that's an important point. However, in this particular one, I do agree with this, or at least I'm in favor of this motion because I can see it being somewhat time sensitive and very much a part of some of our dreams and ideas and things that we're doing with that marina down there. I'm not even going to speak to the possibility of the F fingers going out into there at this point, but I am very much in favor of dredging up the lagoon and some riparian work as outlined in our waterfront master plan. And I really like that part of it. I think it's value added for our community, certainly improves that area down there substantially. And I see this motion that's on the floor right now as being perhaps the first rung on the ladder and an important move towards that goal.
Thank you. And I just and I hope I'm going to add this for clarification, and I hope it's right. It may not be right, but this motion does not kick off any construction whatsoever until we go to the dollar figure. So this is not okaying. We're not going to start constructing or mucking out the lagoon until we go further. Mr. Romanko, please.
Just to kind of draw a little bit of parallel, often council will be asked to approve development permits by developers, and all the I's aren't dotted and all the T's aren't crossed in the processes that are behind a development permit. Here, very, very much similar. Council's involved in the development and the funding, therefore you're kind of seeking out questions that are in behind the scenes. But the first phase is to get the development permit, and then the second phase is to dot all the I's and cross all the T's relative to the funding and the development, the financial development agreements.
Okay, thank you. And again, that was both for my information and for the folks watching on the webcast or on Channel 18 to let them know that this hasn't started as a construction project yet. Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I speak in favor of the motion. At the same time, I agree with the mayor. We have seen people, doing their own calculations as to what our per slip cost will be in the newspaper and so on. And so I think council is very anxious to make sure that we know, in manageable terms, what a per slip cost is going to be for this. At the same time, I just want to say that I'm pleased to see in the development permit, the terms and conditions, council's previous motions reflected about the commercial development permits being issued for each phase, which again I think gives our citizens, our residents, feeling that we're going to scrutinize each of these on the basis of need and demand and so on, and the build out may be longer than had been initially anticipated. So I think it's well designed, and I think with the explanations that I received to my earlier questions, I feel I know where we stand on this and what exactly it's going to entail.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being the last one probably to speak on this topic, or maybe there'll be more if I bring something contentious, I don't know. At any rate, I believe that this is all a process and a work in progress. And we've moved through a committee, riparian studies were done, fisheries were done. We see what the results of those are. We now come to a point where we proceed with a development permit, allows the committee to continue on with their work and report back. We'll be able to now proceed with looking at where we go from here and on dredging and these things. And I I certainly understand the financial implications of it. It is a big expense, but certainly something in a tourist community with a lake in the middle of it and a lot of boats. It's very badly needed. Something that we need to do to enhance the product that we have here, the tourism product. So I'm really glad to see this proceed. I think it's also important to realize that time is always of the essence here, because fisheries, they don't give us too many years to do this. And winter's here and the lake levels are low, and an opportunity to get some things done before next year when we need some new boat launches. And I'm pleased to see us progress and move ahead, and I'm certainly in favor of this.
Thank you. Any further discussion from council? Councillor Chadsey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one more question, again, more for clarity, and it has to do with the riparian DP. You mentioned earlier that you approved it under the delegation of authority, but you said you had not issued it yet. That riparian development permit will be issued to the town of Osoyoos, as will the commercial development permit?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I did not issue it until I knew that council would approve the commercial one. Otherwise, my issuance of the permit, would have been redundant.
Okay. And is there a time limit on a riparian development permit, similar to one for a commercial?
I believe that it's set by the provincial authorities.
Okay.
That's 3 years, I believe.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Steve?
It's 2.
I thought it was 2.
Okay, 2 years.
So you may have to reissue one for the F slips.
Yes, if in fact council was to ever approve one or both of the Fs, very likely we'd have to go back and renew our approval.
Thank you. Just one last question, maybe before the question. That financial security for $50,000, that was in case of what?
It's in case there was any damage, to soils or the lake itself, and it's not likely that it ever be used. But as the primary applicant, we were the ones that had to carry that.
Okay. Yep. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Mr. Shannon. Good presentation, and I'm sure a ton of work from the planning department in many different areas of this report with all that riparian and things. So thanks a lot. Okay, any councillors preparing a notice of motion? None. We head to reports. Time to pay some bills. General and Sunbowl cash requirements. General fund is $105,504.73. Motion, please. Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Opposed? Carried. Sunbowl Arena accounts in the amount of $1,609.68. Councillor Ryan, Councillor Cronmiller, all in favor. Opposed? Carried. And payroll accounts in the amount of $61,394.94. Motion to receive. Councillor Cronmiller, Ryan, all in favor. Opposed? Carried. That brings us to report from the CAO. Mr. Remanko, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Just some items that have been carried out by the administration in the past while. First, starting in our community development area, our community development managers have been able to complete the application to host the FCM board meeting in 2013 within the time required, so that application is in right now. Also completed the agreement to acquire the resort municipality funding from the period of June 1st, 2010 to December 31st, 2010. And this fund amount should be about $231,000. So when we are looking at our budgeting of resort municipality funding, we are looking where we have cash in hand of approximately $430,000 $440,000 that we're working with right now. Also worked to co-sponsor and attend the Chamber of Commerce luncheon speaker that was held last week. In terms of the corporate services, some time taking up with a large Freedom of Information request. Also working with the janitorial contract that Council dealt with today. And bylaw enforcement has been focusing on cleaning up boulevards along the highways and specifically focused on the area from the intersection of Highway 3 and 97 to 74th Avenue. We had some issues that we wanted to deal with there. And work is continuing on the Good Neighbor bylaw. In terms of public works, last week there was a monitoring well drilling underway. These wells were drilled in around the golf course area, and they will be used to check water levels as samples on the sewer treatment water process. So this is on our using of sewer effluent on the watering of the golf course in that particular area. The 87th Street upgrades are going well, and the curbing and sidewalks are scheduled to be poured this week. And Public Works is busy blowing out all the irrigation in the parks, and our irrigation season ends at the end of October. For the CAO, continuing to work on the Northwest Sewer Project in terms of discussions on right-of-ways for Phase 2 and Phase 1, getting down to some discussions on the final to operationalize Phase 1. That'll be happening this week in terms of the discussions, not the actual operationalization. Carried out the review of the proposals for the operation review, and again looked at all the contract applicants and had discussions with council, and met with council on the first input on the business planning process that'll guide our budgeting process. So that's some of the highlights from this past couple of weeks.
That sounds very busy, but then that's the business we're in.
Oh, one other thing, on the last page here, congratulations to our recreation department on another successful Halloween howl that was held last night. Mm-hmm. I stopped by there about 7:30 last night and saw the lineup to get down in the dungeon there move from about 15 to about 45 pretty quick. So, and there were a lot of very happy people there. I haven't got the final numbers, but there was a very good turnout.
That's great. Yeah, and thanks to the folks that work over there. Just before I go to Councillor Chadsey for her report, there's one that's standing out on a page here, and I want to make sure that I get it. The next meeting is not November the 15th. It has been moved to November 22nd. All due notices have been placed in the papers and that, but just for in case somebody misses it, the majority of council is going to be at a conference, sustainability conference in Kelowna. So that's the reason for the move. And we have enough items on our agenda that we couldn't just do a cancel. So the next meeting will be November 22nd. And Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to go through very briefly several things. I've been asked to talk to you, everyone, about Ms. Santa's Night Out. It is the fundraiser for the Osoyoos Secondary School, their Safe Dry Grad. And that's taking place on Friday, November the 19th at Sonora Community Center from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. The tickets are $5 each, and you can get them from any grade 12 student, from Bilo Foods or from Family Foods. There's silent auction and vendors, entertainment, and I guess they're going to raffle off an LCD Samsung 40-inch TV. And so they're hoping everyone will come out and support the grad class of 2011. We just, council earlier today, just had a quick walkabout with representatives from the Ministry of Highways. We are, of course, trying to find safe crosswalks. So we had a really good walk in the rain with them earlier today. Not too long ago, I attended an affordable housing workshop, which was very, very interesting. I find that we are well on our way. We have the land, we have the affordable housing strategy in place, we have a task force, and very soon, hopefully, we can start looking for some partners. But what I did find out is there are just so many different variations to affordable housing, and how you go about and accomplish it. But the one thing that they said, it doesn't matter what you do, it costs money. And it just seems that whatever we try to do or want to do in council or in our day-to-day lives, it always boils down to it costs money. I just want to say good luck to Lorena. She's kind of leaving the paper. She's going to try and work on her own and stay closer to her young boys. And the other thing I want to do, and it was brought up tonight by Mr. Romanko, I just want to acknowledge the disruption to the residents and the daily users of 87th Street. I can't apologize for it. I can't make it go away. But I think it's important that we do acknowledge that there is disruption, and we are aware of it. And hopefully it won't last forever. And that is my report.
Thanks, Councillor Chadsey. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm just glancing at the clock, and we slipped right through the meeting, the business part of it really smoothly today, so I may take this opportunity to filibuster here for a couple hours to get us back on track. So, but in all seriousness, we have a pretty special day coming up in Canada on November 11th, and I'd like to start off my report, if you can call it that, by taking a lead from our mayor and telling a little bit of a story, and then making some comments on it afterwards. And I'm just hoping that you can bear with me for a few minutes while I go through this. But I want to read something that was given by a veteran in our country, and in a newspaper article that I picked up a little while ago. And it starts off by saying the main thing was to keep going. You sat huddled in the landing craft as massive shells from British warships thundered overhead. No one was saying much. Finally, on command, you ran down the ramp into the water and slugged up onto the beach with machine gun fire all around you, and you saw men getting hit, falling, and yelling. You ran past the bodies. Now you heard mortars whining in from the six-barreled maw of a moaning Mini. I'd like to pause here for a minute. This particular machine got its peculiar name from the sound that it made while dispensing bullets faster than anything that you can imagine. It was an awful feeling. There was heavy fire from an 88 millimeter German anti-tank guns from up in the hills. The lieutenant got it, and a sarge took over. He waved you on. You got your eyes on a ridge several hundred yards off the beach and pounded forward until you got the hell up behind it. But those are kind of the end of his words. There was a lot more of it. I kind of paraphrased and grabbed some of the stuff out of the article. And, you know, their words on paper could be a scene from a Hollywood movie, you know, an excerpt from a novel. We've all heard the different variations of the story, perhaps from an uncle or a grandpa, and we've all listened carefully to the words. Sometimes we show empathy, and sometimes we show sympathy. We believe some of it, but mostly we just carry on with our lives and we don't pay much attention to it. The person that spoke these words is alive and well. He's 87 years old, lives in North Vancouver. He's a modest person, not a braggart, and I suppose he's feeling pretty darn lucky that he's here to tell this story to us. I don't know Frank Xantolis, but he is typical of the veterans that are often overlooked by us. Frank authored my opening words, as I said before, based on his experience on June 6, 1944, which was better known as D-Day. He was with the 3rd Canadian Infantry that landed on Juno Beach on that very infamous day. Canadian troops suffered 1,074 casualties on that day and 359 dead on a beach in a faraway country a long way from our home. He, in my opinion, suffered the ultimate horror. Not the kind of horror you see in the movies, but the kind you experience in real life. We've all heard it before. War is hell, and Frank is probably living it every day of his life. 45,300 Canadians lost their life in World War II. Countless Canadians lost their lives in previous wars, and way too many since World War II. And I'll place you Las Vegas odds that no one, not a one of them, wanted to die, and most of them probably died way too young. Fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, you name it, they all gave their lives. Frank, along with every veteran who has ever put on a Canadian uniform, is the reason why we are free and live in a free country. I don't even know him, but he is my hero, and I'll never forget him. We owe him. So November 11th is Remembrance Day, and it's important for you to remember the people who did what they did in the name of freedom. You owe them that much. Do it this year because they are an aging group, and quite simply, you may never have another opportunity to do this. Show that you care by attending the Osoyoos Legion Remembrance Day service at the Sonora Center. If you can't remember, it's November 11th. The doors open at 10 o'clock, and the service begins at 10:50 a.m. And if for some ridiculous reason you can't find a poppy to wear, please give the Legion a call, 250-495-7447. I guarantee that somebody that cares about you will answer the phone on the other end and help you out. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rhodes. Yes, we'll see everybody there on November 11th. And just a bit of a plug to Channel 18. If anyone is interested in looking at some of the horrors of war, they've been running a series put out by the War Amps on Channel 18. Very, very interesting. I've caught a couple of the shows, and yeah, it's absolutely horrific what those men went through in both world wars and the other wars of the world. So if anyone is interested, it's a pretty good historical study of the situation of the times. Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak today on the subject of volunteers. And as I heard the eloquent words of Councillor Rhodes, I thought that those people he's talking about, those airmen and soldiers and sailors, were all volunteers as well. I want to talk specifically about the volunteers who cooperate and serve on committees and task forces with the town of Osoyoos. There are several such groups that have formed in the past and are operating as I speak, and others that will be appointed in the future. But just to list some of them, past, present, and future, we had the Affordable Housing Task Force. For a long time, we've had the Recreation Commission. We have a Lake Recreational and Commercial Use Task Force, a Council Remuneration Committee, a Tourism Advisory Committee, yet to be appointed committee, Joint Agricultural Advisory Steering Committee, that is going to help develop a new agricultural plan for our official community plan in conjunction with Electoral Area A. And again, a yet to be appointed community sustainability action team that will work on the sustainability planning that we discussed today in cooperation with the Whistler Center for Sustainability. And I would urge you all to go to the website, our website, the town website, and look up today's meeting, because when we talked about the Center for Sustainability and our contract with Whistler, there was a nice graph there of the spectrum of participation in public participation in various kinds of things. And I think it's good to look at that, to see the different degrees of participation and how that is being used here in our community. Because in fact, the council has been very, very definitely committed to this kind of public involvement, public participation. Now, why do we do this? Well, are we just trying to add on extra work to busy people, or to download some of our own work? Well, the answer is very simple. We believe, we have strong convictions about the great value of citizen participation and input into important initiatives that the town undertakes. That's why we have public hearings on important proposed developments. That's why we give members of the public the opportunity to voice their opinions on important matters like our budget, our 5-year plan, road closures, and so on. Now, sometimes these things seem a little more formidable, perhaps. They're not quite as friendly, and maybe people have some reluctance to participate, or perhaps they're not interested, which is all right too if they don't feel it concerns them. But we think that it's important and a vital part of a well-functioning and open community, a community that recognizes its residents have a variety of experiences, talent, training, insights that will enrich us all if they are shared with the larger community. Many people are not comfortable or don't have the time to write letters or emails or appear as a delegation before council or to step forward at a public hearing or public meeting. So the creation of task forces or steering committees or advisory committees enables us to overcome some of these hindrances and at the same time benefit from their insights and advice by being in a smaller, perhaps more comfortable setting of a smaller group and committee. In any event, we are committed to engaging our residents and encouraging and fostering their participation in our civic life. And I personally want to heartily thank all those who've served in the past and are currently serving on such committees, and encourage each one of you to offer your talents and skills on the occasion when it arises in the future. I just had two other little things I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, and first is that speaking of volunteers, there is a volunteer group called the South Okanagan Amateur Players who are putting on a play in Osoyoos at the Mini Theater this Friday and Saturday. And you may see some familiar faces in it because about half the cast is from Osoyoos. This is a volunteer group, and in fact, not only is it a volunteer group, but it's a group that not only is nonprofit, but takes some of its proceeds and provides a scholarship both in Osoyoos and in Oliver to high school students there. And I'd just like to commend as well Blake Ogilvie, because he's building a new building up in the industrial area, and he has very futuristically put in a catchment for his rainwater, and is using it to irrigate his plantings on his site. So we're hearing on the radio about a water barrel initiative and conference up in Kelowna, I think, this week, and so he's ahead of the curve, I think.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. And on that issue of volunteers, to me, it just shows how successful council has been getting that number of volunteers out. If we can get more, the more input we have, the better it is. The more we understand the situation and share some of the consequences with the town. I think it's very successful. It's healthy. It's real healthy to have people coming forward to get involved, and we keep asking for them, and they keep coming. So it's a great program. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commented on the length of the meeting, and my partners here, fellow councilors, have had many issues that they've talked about and kind of left me in a spot where I said, hey, what do I want to talk about anymore? Many things have been highlighted. But one that I did think about that I would like to mention, and on the vein of volunteers, I think that it began with a person who volunteered and sat on a board, and it evolved to a permanent position and a paid position, and put in a lot of time and a lot of passion. And I speak of Gail Cornish, our member from the museum, and the curator that just recently retired, and I had the opportunity to attend a farewell retirement day for her a week ago at the museum, and I'd just like to thank Gail for her passion and for her enthusiasm for the museum. And without that, I'm sure there wouldn't be a line item on our budget that has some money going to the museum in support of it. And I know the work she did when I go to that museum today versus when I first came here many years ago, that the museum is a very delightful place today. There's a lot of work has gone into the exhibits and the changing and cleaning up of things and organization and all of that. And it's just, I really like to commend her for her work and how, as I say, it's gone from a volunteer to paid to retirement again. So for Gail, and I wish her all the best. And sure, that's my report.
Thanks, Councillor Cronmiller. And again, I'll have to follow Councillor Cronmiller and thank Gail publicly and just wish her the best in her retirement. And that her effort there was just really monumental to getting that. She was a classic case of the right person at the right time, and managed to get her into probably a burnout situation where she is into retirement. But I know that she'll be back slugging for the museum. There has been a lot said. The one thing that I'm going to throw into the mix was I did attend the conference last week, and rainwater as a resource. This was done with the Okanagan Basin Water Board and the BC Wastewater Association, and it started out to be a bit of a. I was sort of wondering why I was there that the first part of the first day, and it was a bit draggy, and I wasn't tying it all together. And boy, by the time I finished day 2, I was just really, really pumped up. It was just an exceptional conference, and dealing with rain as a resource, and not just the quantity part of the equation where, we know we're into a drought and people are saving rainwater and using it as Councillor Ryan referred to with Blake Olivey, which is just, that we're going to see a lot more of that. But it's also about planning departments, and there's many areas now where you keep your rainwater on your land. And there was one from the Cowichan Valley, a Home Depot center, and basically a 10-acre site, all impervious between the roof and the parking lot and the pavers, and how they dealt with the issue of living in a coastal rain zone and dealing with water on site. And that was a requirement from the planning department of the town that nothing flows off of their site. So it was really interesting to see all the uses and what they did and the money they had to spend to curtail that. And bringing that home, we've had that great success with the Watermark building in Osoyoos, where we basically put about 13 acres of downtown Osoyoos and ran that through a treatment system. And I was talking to Ron Doucette, our operations manager, about the storm scepter and how often the cleaning is and all that. And I believe we're just doing it once a year, and that's adequate. We don't get a lot of rain here, but when it does, there sure is a lot of crud coming off of all the roads and that end up in that storm scepter, and it's just working like a darn. Having said that, we have 3 or 4 more areas that have to be dealt with. And it's sort of, as we can meet the needs, there's the 89th Street down by Legion Beach. And as we can chew away at them, we certainly will be addressing those, because the last thing we need is contaminants in the lake. So when you're looking at rainwater as a resource, it's both the containment of it and the treatment of it. So it's the two Qs. It's the quantity and the quality. The Lintel subdivision in East Osoyoos probably needs some help there. Sonora Ridge, thank you, Councillor Cronmiller. When they were doing their subdivision up there, and we were looking at runoff, and all those houses are basically mandated to have 2 dry wells in their front yard, one taking the roof collection of water into a dry well, and the other one looking at some of the driveways and things like that, and ensuring that water stays on the property. And as soon as you move away from that, with the 50-year occurrence now becoming the 25-year occurrence, now becoming the 10-year occurrence, when we get those sort of flash floods that seem to be more prevalent, anytime man or society tries to curb water and tries to channel it and tries to move it somewhere, you're looking at trouble. You're going to get something plugged up, and it's going to wash out, and it's going to cause a lot of damage. So this rainwater on site was really an interesting program. And again, it'll be it already is a part of the town of Osoyoos' mandate, and we'll be seeing more of that in the future. So a very rewarding conference. And having said that, that would be my report. So we would be entertaining a motion to Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Cronmiller, all in favor. We're adjourned. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you.
Hey. Okay, well.